Now, if you click this video, I'm going to assume that you know broadly what happened in Southport, in particular, the events surrounding a certain Welsh choir boy's visit to Southport. I'm not going to talk about the events of that day. And the reason for that is not because, as some people have suggested, you could prejudice the trial and the guy will walk away. I don't think that's realistic. But you can still find yourself in contempt of court very, very quickly. Now, instead, what I'm going to talk about are rumours surrounding not the events of that day specifically, but the Rudakabana family in general, and in particular things about how they came to the UK, who may or may not have been their human rights lawyer, for example. So that's just a quick disclaimer, things I'm not going to talk about and why, and things I am going to talk about without a why. If you want to listen, then listen. Now, if you're an ex, you'll be very aware of all of the rumours that are being spread around and the theories and everything else. A lot of this seems to stem from an interview that Nigel Farage recently did. It was just released yesterday, in which he claimed that this was the biggest cover-up and conspiracy that we've had in Britain for a generation. And that was very, very interesting. And obviously that stirred a lot of people to start questioning things.
Now I'm told by the Speaker of the House of Commons, I can't ask questions about it in the House of Commons. Parliamentary privilege is out of the window. We are witnessing one of the biggest cover-ups we've ever seen in our lives. And I won't say any more than that.
Now, there is some truth immediately to his claim in the fact that parliamentary privilege, the ability for MPs to question and say whatever they want in the Houses of Parliament, was withdrawn specifically for this case. So already you start to get the sense that something's not quite right here about this case. There's something a little bit strange that's going on here. But we really have to be guarded against just rampant speculation. The fact that we don't have all the information and we don't have all the answers doesn't mean we can start putting answers in, particularly ones that are then going to enrage people and frustrate people. And I'll show you why. Now, here's the first case of this going horribly wrong. It comes from a tweet made by Lawrence Fox, which he directs at Keir Starmer, and he has a question. To Keir Starmer, who was Axel Rudakabana's father's lawyer? Immigration lawyer. In the tweet, he attaches a photograph, and it's a photograph of the front page of a case, and within this case, Keir Starmer is the lawyer defending some claimants and their right to asylum within the UK from 2003. Now, a lot of people could see this and immediately assume that this is the case that got the family into the UK, and Keir Starmer was in fact the lawyer. Wow. Absolute bombshell of news. But it's not true. I looked into the case and there's a few things you should note. First of all, there is only one person in that case from Rwanda, and it's a woman. So we can immediately exclude it from being Axel's father. So Lawrence Fox's questioning to Keir Starmer, who was Axel's father's lawyer, well, this provides no evidence for it whatsoever. And if you're thinking, well, it might still be a family member or something like that, there's no way of knowing because the claimants aren't named, only their initials are given. So there is absolutely no way of knowing at all whether the case that Lawrence linked has anything to do with Axel's family whatsoever. It's pure rampant speculation designed to just get people into a hysteria. And we have to be very, very cautious and guarded against people who will do things like that. Now, in general, I think you should be very weary of Lawrence Fox's tweets and his tweeting. And why do I say this? Because another tweet that he made very recently, just a couple of days ago, said that if the pigs, the police, come to your door, you should greet them with an axe. And what can we make of that? What might any rational individual make of a tweet like that? I think there's possibly three purposes for a tweet like that. The first is that it's a joke, which has fallen flat and is not very funny. But let's go with that. Could just be a simple joke. The second is that he truly means it. If the police come to your door, you should greet them with an axe, which I do not recommend and I do not support. And the third is that a tweet like that is made purely to get engagement and views and attention. Three possibilities. I'll leave it up to the audience to determine which is most likely to be the case. However, when someone's making tweets like that, you do have to start wondering, what is their purpose for all of their tweets in general? That's all I'll say on the matter, because Lawrence probably seems like the kind of guy who would try and sue me. Okay, second piece of unhelpful speculation, which has no evidentiary basis. I saw a tweet in which someone had asked ChatGPT, the AI model online, which you can all go and talk to if you're feeling lonely, whether there was any relationship between Keir Starmer and Axel's father. And ChatGPT came back and said, yep, he was the lawyer. He was the human rights lawyer who defended Axel's father and made sure they could come to the UK. Wow, smoking gun. No, obviously not. Now, you may not know much about ChatGPT, and good for you, okay? Absolutely good for you. But these language-trained AI models can be very, very easily manipulated. Now, to prove this point, I'm not just going to say this and leave it there. To prove this point, I replied to that tweet from Chris Taylor, where I had asked ChatGPT if Chris Taylor and Axel himself were good friends. And God, bloody hell. I replied to Chris Taylor's tweet with a ChatGPT conversation that I had genuinely had with ChatGPT, in which I had managed to convince ChatGPT that Chris Taylor himself, the originator of the tweet, was really good friends with Axel. They were best friends. Now, if you don't know much about these AI models, firstly, good for you. Secondly, they're very, very, very easy to feed and manipulate, which is exactly what I did. I trained the model to simply recognise that Chris Taylor and Axel were really good friends. They met in Cardiff. They were at choir together, blah, blah, blah. Super easy. So that is not good evidence. Be very, very cautious of people who use ChatGPT screenshots as evidence for anything. It's not. It's really, really not. And that just proves it. It was kind of a fun way to prove a point. Now, onto a theory that I did find a little bit more interesting. I wouldn't quite say compelling, but certainly interesting. And that's the idea that there's a guy who was implicated for crimes in Rwanda. I won't say the G word because YouTube won't like it. And he shares the same surname, Rubikabanu, as Axel. So that's immediately quite interesting. And what I then started to think was, is there possibly a familial connection? So the first thing I did was go onto Google and I searched for how common of a surname this actually was. Because if you really think about it, if it's the equivalent of Smith in England or Jones in Wales, it's really not very helpful. Every other person has that as a surname. But actually, it's not that common. Only 1 in 3,000 people in Rwanda have that surname. And that might sound like a lot, but when you really think about it, it's not. The population of Rwanda is just 15 million people, which means only 5,000 people in Rwanda or from Rwanda have that as a surname. So that's very, very interesting. And could there be some kind of familial connection there? It's still statistically improbable, but at least you have something you can go and look at, a little piece of evidence. You can go and look at this guy, his name's Anaclet, I won't be pronouncing that correctly, and see if there's a family link. You'd have to be a very good journalist and have a lot of time to go ahead and try and do that. I certainly don't have the time or the resources to do that, but I at least found that more interesting. Now, the previous point ties into something else which I found fascinating, which is this. The Rwandan government have been desperate to get back from the UK 4 or 5, I believe, previously Rwandan citizens who they believe are implicated in very, very serious crimes in Rwanda during the G word that I still won't say. Now, this raises a lot of questions, even separate from this case, about whether we should just give those people back to Rwanda. Now, Rwanda is, at this point, presumably not an unsafe country where justice can't be done. And I say that because it was under the Conservative government that they were saying we can't return these people to Rwanda because they might not get a fair trial. But Rwanda is exactly the place that they wanted to send illegal migrants. So how could they argue that it's safe and not safe at the same time? That's very, very interesting to me. There's a bit of a sort of problem there of the mind. Regardless, could there be some kind of connection there? Is potentially that the thing that's being attempted to be covered up, which is that someone within Axel's family was one of the people that Rwanda wanted to get back to face justice. It's certainly possible. Again, I have absolutely no evidence for that. It's a compelling idea, but there's really nothing more to it than that. There's nothing we can say. And what's interesting is I do wonder whether, if that were true, Rwanda themselves wouldn't have said something by now about it and kind of blown the roof off of it. So again, you know, I've cautioned about speculation, and I'm there speculating a lot, which I know is pretty unfortunate. Maybe it's a bit hypocritical, but I'm trying to do so in a fair way. But is there something there? Maybe, maybe not. No real evidence either way. But there is at least, you know, cords, threads that you could potentially pull on and go and find something out. Again, like I say, I'm not a journalist with the time or the resources to go and do that, but maybe someone better than me could. So what can we actually conclude? Well, I would say very little. I would say we can conclude very little about these rumours and whether they're true or not. Now, the reason that we can conclude very little is because, ultimately, a lot of that information is being kept away from us. Now, a lot of these journalists and people who keep saying, including Nigel Farage, there's something much bigger happening here, that may well be true. And all of that hopefully will at some point come to light and we can get some answers. But we still have to be very, very cautious, even in light of the fact that information is being deliberately withheld. We have to be very, very cautious not to implement conclusions that we perhaps want to be true. For example, you may want there to be a connection between Keir Starmer and the family because you don't like Keir Starmer and you would like to see that end his career as Prime Minister and him be forced to resign. But you simply wanting that has no basis on whether or not it's actually true. And it could be. He was a human rights lawyer. He did do these kinds of cases during that time. So it's not like out of the realms of possibility at all. If it all turns out to be true, I will feel completely happy with this video and the video that I've made. Everyone else will be gloating, saying, oh, you're wrong, you're an idiot. But I'll still have been correct. Until that time, as we discovered the truth, there will have been no evidence to actually support these claims. So I'm comfortable making this video, even if it turns out that, you know, the people that I've, I guess, pitched myself against turn out to be right. Because their use of evidence and the things that they're using to support their claims, they just have no merit. Ultimately, ChatGPT and just asserting the fact that Keir Starmer was at one point a human rights lawyer, it's just not sufficient. So we'll see what comes of it. A lot of these people who are saying, oh, there's something really big here, won't give out any of their evidence, won't give out anything to support it, which is pretty frustrating, and I understand why they're doing that. Even if everything that they're saying is true and they really do know something, I understand why they wouldn't give the details. But it's also perfectly possible that a lot of people who are doing that don't have any details, don't have any evidence. They're just speculating, imagining, presuming because Nigel Farage said there's a cover-up that it has to be something to do with Keir Starmer, when it doesn't. The cover-up he might be referring to could be as simple as the fact that details about his Al-Qaeda manual, which the guy was found with, were covered up and not shown to the public, for example. That could be all that Nigel Farage is referring to. We really, really don't know. So even though I've done a bit of speculating, less speculating, stay honest. If new rumours or anything else comes to light, I will endeavour to go through the evidence, see what we can make of it rationally. I will keep you informed, and that's it really. God, it's getting cold now. Right. Peace.